Hi, welcome to another edition of What the Fuck happening in YouTube atheist community and tiny chat, whatever, conversation and debate and such. Anyway, so last night, it was quite adequate. Just moseyed along. Really just, kind of a one-on-one kind of conversations, first with Logic Rolls the Dice and then with Sub-DNA substantially. Dealing with nature of consciousness and such. The first half hour or 40 minutes or so I didn't record because I forgot to hit the button again. So I do lament the loss of that, but it was pretty good. But anyway, it was substantive conversation, I'd say, if you're into that kind of thing. Yeah. So it was good. And so maybe I'll talk a little bit about that. The subjects. Hopefully Days made another response video and asking why fairness, and that's sort of an interesting, it's just such a strange question, because it's one of those, why is water wet? Why is the efficiency a scale from good to bad? Duh. But yeah, if somebody requires you to explain something like why water is wet, obviously you have to reduce it to, because we, basically created the word wet to describe the nature of water. And the word fairness is a word to describe the nature, of doing it right. An appropriate arrangement. So it's almost, well, what do you want me to say? You want me to explain why an appropriate arrangement is appropriate? Why deserve is good and not deserved is bad? I guess all you have to do is say the not deserved part is the obvious one. So again, we're back to this white space argument where freedom is not the good word. Freedom is not a meaningful word. Oppression is the meaningful word, or lack of freedom. Suspension of it, denial of it. So it's not really having it. It's having the opposite of it, which is some oppression. And it's kind of the same idea. There's no deserve. There's just undeserved. That kind of thing. There's no unrape. There's rape and there's no rape. But there's no unrape. That kind of thing. So anyway, but back to the consciousness thing. And sorry, no, it's a little bit of wind, and I don't have a Band-Aid on the microphone, so hopefully it's not. This camera is fairly good at not getting, not getting insanely bad, unless the wind's really harsh. It's just medium. Do have my battery cigarette, which is kind of a nice improvement. To go be able to take it with me. So thank you, China, for providing the cheap hardware that makes it possible to enhance my existence. So anyway, that's a side subject. Alright, so it's this nature of consciousness, and the word I've been playing with is illusion. Like I said, I didn't like it a couple of years ago, but I like it okay now. Because something being an illusion doesn't mean it doesn't have significance. Something being a projection, inside our brain. I guess that's a better word, would be projection. It's something like that, something where it doesn't really have a substance. Its substance is in an arrangement or in a circumstance. It's still not quite the way I want to say it. It's a composite of events, of things happening in our brain. And the byproduct of those happenings is this, somehow we create a seer and something to see. Somehow our brain creates the screen, which is my sense data, my interaction with reality, which is completely a symbolic representation. My brain has synthesized reality. It's converted reality into an image and an idea. Tree is a concept for me. I don't have any doubts about what tree is doing. I understand tree, so it's not unfamiliar or unrecognized. It has a whole bunch of connected, logical, constituent, related parts to it inside of my understanding. So my context is applying more richness than just the stark image of, whatever, gray-brown stuff. My brain understands the gray-brown stuff in a more sophisticated context, and that's part of my screen's projection. It has a three-dimensionalness where it's not just the image of the world, it's the image with the understanding connected. Yes, everything's where it's supposed to be. My consciousness analyzes and sees and recognizes and doesn't. It accepts this as a reality and then accepts it as in its correct form. And nothing's on fire, that kind of thing. Yeah, this wind might be a problem. Yeah, maybe a problem for my hands even. Anyway, so yeah, we're living in a synthesized. Our brain synthesizes out of photonic data, different kinds of stimulation, movement of the material universe interacts with us, and our brain synthesizes a reality out of that, and then it places this feeling thing, this, this I'm here in the middle of that created reality. And how it synthesizes these elements, how it creates the projector, the screen, and the theater seat you're sitting in, and the you that's sitting in it. We really can't answer that question yet, but I think we can say the answer something is going to be something like, okay, I think we're at that stage where we can say what the answer is going to be, something like, this idea of creating an illusionary ghosts that are living in a reality more real than reality. It's like our brain makes this ether-like ghost that is me, and has it interacting in a fake ghost reality that it made, that it synthesized out of data. And the ironic part, the funny part, the ludicrous part, is that this synthesized fake world my brain created is realer than reality. It's more significant than reality because it's created it's given concepts like bad reality. It's given concepts like bad meaning by having a me to torture, a me to hurt, a me to harm, a me to be vulnerable to a lesser qualitative condition. And so it's created the ruler. It's created the It's not really the best analogy. But in trying to duplicate a scale of proportionality to, the straight lineness of our function, how well we're doing something, how straight you're running in a race, it needs a mechanism of reward and punishment to get you to run straighter, and so to create that measuring stick of, yes, that was better than that other thing you did, and creating the ruler, our brain created the actual value essence that is now measured. So before, where it was a synthetic concept of this is a straighter line, now it's a real concept of this is a more beneficial path. So it's taken a crude standard of efficiency that exists in nature, the sense of the most efficient, the fact that efficiency would be conducive to some sort of definition of function. So if you had a standard of a function, like survival, there would be elements that would create a more efficient survival, a better fuel economy, so to speak. You eat less, therefore you are at risk of harm less because you don't have to fight with other animals to get food. So there's a certain efficiency in being able to better metabolize food for survival. And so it took something that's just flatly mechanical like that, where for a microbe it doesn't matter whether it survives or not. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter what happens to it, because there's no theater that the microbe's living in where it can be harmed. There's no illusionary world being created for it to be harmed in. But you can see that once you do create that mechanism, you're off to the races in terms of creating more elaborate reward and punishment system that would involve something like learning and being able to modify programming based on personal experience, based on your adventures in your illusionary world. You would be rewarded with positive and negative sensations, based on how whatever the formula is of your psychology in terms of recognizing what an accomplishment is. So then we get to the simplicity of, the idea of idiocracy and, very small-mindedness versus big-mindedness, in terms of understanding that the native psychology, the native reward and punishment system is one made for animals fighting in a hierarchy, for dominance and alpha status, that enabled you to create more progeny, because your dominance afforded you liberties, that the betas weren't entitled to, so to speak, hadn't earned. So our psychology is made of a lot of these very crude value systems where we feel good when we beat somebody else. When we make somebody else a loser, our psychology makes us feel good. When we can intellectually understand, that's not something to feel good about. And so that's where the real conflict for modern humans comes, is there's going to be a conflict between the value as we can understand it in the world, and the value we will feel. We will perhaps enjoy eating the flesh of animals, but we could understand, viscerally and physically, but yet we can understand that the price paid for that pleasure is too high, and it's not economically viable. It's not a it's not a straight enough line. It's too inefficient. The comfort is too high a price of discomfort. That kind of simple economics. And so that's the conflict that is created, so that our psychology can be scrutinized by our intellect, and we can certainly understand that its values are rubbish, and that real value is something that needs to be understood through careful examination. You're not going to find a real straight line without applying contextual understanding. And if you go by your psychology, it certainly won't be an efficient line. It'll just be an efficient line for your sperm and egg. It won't have anything to do with deserve and productivity or fairness. It'll just have to do with perpetuating, a bit of DNA, a molecule's perpetuation. So hardly a sensible ambition for a reasonable organism. And I do have to find the end of this pipe. Yeah. Trying to get the water to go down it. Anyway, clean up this mess. Yeah. So much to do. Anything's too much. So anyway, until next time. And such.